First of all, it's a great pleasure being here with you. But before I can say anything, I will start with a short prayer. This prayer actually I do anywhere I go. It doesn't matter if I am talking in a conference, in a congress, in a temple, in a school. Basically, this prayer I do is to remember the kindness of my teachers and the teachers of my teachers. And it's just because if I have anything that I can share with you today, it's because someone taught me. So it is in general in Buddhism, and I believe very much in the importance of recognizing the kindness of those that taught us. So to be grateful. So first of all, I'd like just to start with this short prayer. Okay. The first part of the prayer is in Tibetan. The second part of the prayer is in Sanskrit. If there is anybody that I know here that knows the prayer, like to join me, is also welcome. Okay. Locho sampo pagyo trashi pa tuche tempe trinle yarngoda pege drolor zampe tse parche palden lame shabla solvade Omo a guru vajra dara sumatimo nishasane karma uta vardanya shri badra varsa manya sarva siddhi hum. Om a guru vajra dara sumatimo nishasane karma uta vardanya shri badra Varsa manya sarva siddhi hum. Pakyuke kodan dagi lo, pakyuke sondan dagi nga, pakyuke todan dagi ye, ten yerme chikto jingi. Makyuke kodan dagi lo, makyuke sondan dagi nga, makyuke todan dagi ye, ten yerme chikto jingi. Om muni muni, maha muni, shakya muni, soha. I'm very happy to be here. I think many of you we have met before in the congresses that very happily I could participate. And I'm happy also to be here today because it's an opportunity to share some things that for me are very useful, basically. You know? And I have many joys in my life. I have a very good life. I really cannot complain. Sure, we all have something to complain about normally, but I have a really good life. But from all the things I have, one of the things that gives me the greatest joy is the possibility to share with others aspects of life that are very beneficial for myself. Things that I could learn, I could experience, and to have this opportunity of sharing. And this is one of the reasons also why in one evening like today, for me, really I don't know really much what I'm going to talk about. From the point of view, I don't have a structure of subject. Point A, B, C, D, and so on. And but it's mostly because I'm not here to teach anything. I'm here to share. Okay? If you want to make a lesson about Tibetan philosophy, Buddhist philosophy, and we go in a very academical way. I studied in that way. It's very easy to teach in that way, really. No problem. But I really prefer in this moment to share something with you that for me is of benefit, that is possible for us to apply in our lives. And that is in the same time also one of the reasons of my own life. It's what how to say, sustains my life, what gives meaning to me. Okay? When we talk about the meaning of reality, the reality in which we live, is something that very often we take for granted, no? What is reality? But how many times in our lives have we ever really questioned ourselves what is reality? It's not something that we are taught to do much, no? I don't know, in school, are we taught to question what is reality? I'm not talking about trying to understand what other people said is reality. I'm talking about questioning what is reality. To look at things and say, how things actually are. Where I am. Who am I? And this is a question that for me is extremely important. And I see very often we don't do much to ask ourselves, who am I? What am I? What is the world in which I live? And when we go to Buddhist philosophy, in anything, it is divided into 3 parts, which in Tibetan is called Shilam Jesum, which means basis, the path, and the result. Anything we need to do, we need to have these 3 aspects. Let's say, I don't know, I'm going to start a new business. What the basis is, what are the resources I have? Then, the path is what I'm going to do with these resources. The result is where I'm going to get with it. So I want to make a business that is going to be selling internationally so I can sell it after 10 years and become very rich and never work again. Just inventing whatever, okay? So what do I have now? Oh, I have my knowledge, I have some little money, I can invest that. In order to get to my goal, what I need to do? I need to do this, and that. That's the path. But it's very important that the basis, which are the resources we have, the path and the result, they must be coherent. Normally we start first understanding the basis, then understanding what result I can get, and then we go, what path can I follow in order to get to these results? So when we talk about the reality in which we live, understanding the reality in which we live, we are talking about the basis. Is understanding which are the resources that I have with me. We are not talking about understanding a complex philosophy of whatever. It's basically, first of all, understanding what is this body, what is the world around me, how do things exist, what is the coherent way of living. One of the aspects that I really like very much of Buddhism, that, because before that, personally, I don't feel I am a religious person. Maybe that's a bit strange to say. Okay? What do I mean by that? I am and I have always been quite skeptical person. In the sense, I believe in what I understand and in what I experience directly. Otherwise, we can say thousands of things. It doesn't matter who tells me. There are some things that, for example, my teacher, Lama Michel Rinpoche, the person that I most respect, have said to me that I really don't understand yet, I have not experienced. I put in waiting list. There are things that we don't understand, we have not had an experience, that's not a reason why it's wrong, or it doesn't exist. But I put it in waiting list. No, I have a long waiting list. When we experience the opposite, then we take out of the waiting list, say, no, that's wrong. Otherwise, we need to it's very important to have waiting lists, I believe, of things that we know that we don't know about. Because sometimes we simply take for granted the things that we know, and what we don't know, we say, oh, that's wrong. We put it aside. Instead, I think sometimes it's even more important to know what we don't know than to know what actually we know. I always remember one day, I was so happy a few years ago. I was a little bit sad one day during New Year time. I never liked so much the New Year, for whatever reason, I don't know. Since I was a kid, I never understand why we need to choose one day where it's the New Year. This is my personal problem. Anyhow, what happened is that one time I wanted to talk with Lama Ganchen about my own faults. So I wrote them down. remember, there were 32 faults. Things that I have that I don't like, that I need to change, and so on. And then I went to talk to him, and I couldn't talk to him right away about it. He asked, okay, maybe another time. Past 2 years almost until the time I was able to talk to him about it. And the day I read it to him, I was so happy. Why? First of all, okay, 2 of them were not there anymore. So I couldn't find anyone new. So it means I'm going in a good direction. There were 30, not 32. But what gave me the greatest joy was to see my own faults, to see what I don't know, to see where I can grow, to see where I can get better. Because in the moment that we see that I can get better, it means there is a whole horizon that we can go. In the moment that I see what I don't know, I see my own limitations, it means I can go beyond it. If what I am is the maximum that I can get, then I really am in trouble, you know. Instead, to have this ability to put things in waiting list. Okay, this I don't know, good. I must try to understand it. Having patience towards ourselves and the world to see that sometimes we will understand things in the way that we least expected to understand them. Things come in the most strange way sometimes. But when we talk about reality, it's one important thing to understand in which reality we actually live. Because that's the basis. Some things we will not understand right away. Not even a little bit after right away also we will not understand, but we put them in waiting list. But it's a very important aspect. For me, as I move along my life, questioning, wondering, reflecting, through Buddhism especially, one thing I've saw about Buddhist teachings, which is maybe one of the aspects that I most like. As I was saying before, I'm not very religious in the sense that I'm not fanatic of Buddhism, you know. If someone comes and shows me a path that is more coherent, more clear, of greater benefit, I will be very grateful to Buddhist teachings, but I will follow the next one. No doubt. But the point is that the more I followed Buddhist teachings, one thing became very clear for me. What Buddha's tried to show to us is a way how to live our life and how to experience reality that is coherent. Our suffering is coming mostly from the way of being uncoherent with reality. We relate with reality in an uncoherent way with what reality actually is. Okay? I will give a few examples tonight. So, of things that we relate in a way, when we go to analyze, when we go to observe, we see that it's wrong. And the more we are attached to a reality that is incoherent with the way how things are, the more we suffer. Okay? One of the aspects which is core to Buddhist teachings is that the root of all suffering, of all conflicts, is ignorance. If we look around in this world, there are many conflicts, no? Starting from our family, our friends, our job, the place where we have fun, we can have conflicts in the country, conflicts in society, international conflicts between religions, whatever. If we look to this world from the material point of view, from nature, is there anything that nature cannot give us? Or is it nature giving enough? I think nature is giving enough, no? Would there be enough food for everyone to eat in the world? Yes. You know? So, why this planet Earth is not a paradise? Who makes it not to be a paradise? Us. No, there is one thing that for me is very funny. I don't know, at least for me it's funny. When I read descriptions of paradises. Because whenever we have description of paradises in many different traditions, mostly the description of paradise is of everything we would like to have in earth, but we don't have right away. No? And I'm quite sure if we make a modern description of paradise, we would put fast internet connection in it. But when we talk about it, we never talk about the people living in paradise, how they should be. But what happened, for example, let's say we are a group of 100 people. And we have our own conflicts, our own problems, and so on, and suddenly we go to a paradise, whatever paradise we like to call. What happened after some time with that paradise? This is my little space of the paradise, you cannot come in. That's your space of paradise, okay, but mine is better than yours. Then I start to get envy. Then I try to destroy your space of paradise. I take it out of you. What happened if we make the same? What makes a place a paradise is not the actual space, but the ones that are there. So what happened is that if we look at all the conflicts that we live, where are they coming from? Ignorance. Being incoherent with the way how we relate to reality. This manifests through attachment, insatisfaction, hatred, violence, physical, verbal, mental violence, jealousy, envy, and many, many other ways. If we look at all those emotions, not one of them is coherent with reality. Okay, we will see a little bit of this. But the point is that if we really look, where are our conflicts coming from? Wars. How much money and energy is invested to solve conflicts in the world? So much. But we are never really going to the actual point. Never, I don't know, but mostly not. Where is the actual point? Selfishness, hatred, attachment, coming from our own ignorance. Okay? So, understanding the world we live in is extremely important. Let's go to the points, because there are many things that I'd like to share, and we don't have that much time. Let's start to see some of the ways how we are incoherent, because there are many ways how we can talk about a subject. And I have found out that for me, sometimes it's easier to understand something going, instead of showing what's the right way, first we see the wrong way, then it's much easier for us to understand the right one. Okay. So, for example, okay, we go another way still. Do we suffer when things change? Depend what change. Sure, not all changes we suffer, right? Okay, when we have this strong winter and suddenly you have this beautiful sun coming out, it was a change. Are we suffering out of it? Mostly not, right? But when there is something that we like and it's there and suddenly it changes, and we are not expecting that change, do we suffer? Normally, we suffer more because what is happening, or because, according to us, it should not have happened. We suffer more not because of what is really there, but because, according to us, it should not have happened. Who am I to say what should happen? Okay, when we look at these beautiful flowers, okay, these flowers are constantly in change. When we go in the Buddha teachings, when it talks, there is one teaching called the 12 links of interdependence. In one of them, it's talking about birth, and just after birth, there is aging and death. And the second instant after birth, when something starts, right away, it starts to die. You know? When we are born, 9 months old, we are already more near to death. We are already aging. As we start this gathering today, it's already starting to end. Every instant that passes, we are getting more near to the end of whatever has started, and to the beginning of something new that will come afterwards. Because end means transformation. It doesn't mean complete nothingness. Which one thing finishes, another thing starts. That's a transformation. But when we look to these flowers, they are constantly in transformation. Okay? Can we perceive the constant transformation of the flowers? Can we perceive that the flowers are getting a little older and maybe dry and so on, and then maybe the color is slowly changing? Can we perceive the death in the flowers or not? without philosophizing with our mind. Okay? Just looking at it. Okay? If we look at the flowers, we close our eyes, then we open their eyes again and look at them. Are them the same flowers or they have changed? Without philosophizing with our mind. Same flowers, right? We meet each other now here. Let's say we go home and we meet again tomorrow. Who do we expect to meet? The same person or a different person? The same person. Okay. Now, do we change from one day to the other, or we continue exactly the same? We change. The flowers, when we close our eyes and then after we open again, if we analyze them, are them actually different or they are exactly the same? Have there been any change on them? Yes. Nothing changes like this in an instant. Everything is gradual and it's happening. So much is happening inside these flowers right now. But we are not able to perceive it. One aspect, for example, of reality is that we live in a world that is impermanent. Things are constantly changing. Everything around us is constantly transforming. But we are not aware of it. So, when something has such a strong change that we cannot perceive it as before, we suffer. Okay? I try to explain a little bit how it functions, why it happens like this. Everything around us is constantly transforming. This is clear, right? Okay, my beard is growing, my hair is growing as I'm talking, I'm getting older, as all of us, okay, not only me. Okay? And what is happening at this point? We are not able to see it right away, but it's clear for us that everything is changing, right? Okay, there is movement in everything. Now, okay, when we see something, let's take for instance these flowers. When we look at the flowers, what actually appears to our eyes? Flowers or shapes and colors? Shapes and colors, right? For example, when we see flowers, do we like them? What reaction we have in our mind? Joy or sadness normally? Joy? Not for everyone. For example, I remember one time in Brazil, we had a friend and she's a school teacher, and they had a day in the school and in a public school in the outskirts of the city. And she prepared one room full of flowers dedicated to the mothers. So the mothers would come and she made this beautiful room full of flowers. And she put a lot of effort. She didn't have much money, but she put some money there, quite a lot, to make this beautiful room and so on. And nobody was entering the room. No one. And people were going, they looked at the flowers and they were going away. And at a certain point she came and she asked, what's the problem? Why no one is entering? Oh, too many flowers in there. And so what? Oh, we only see flowers in funerals. Because at that part of the city, very poor area of São Paulo, people never buy flowers just to have something beautiful. Flowers is equal to funerals. So for them, to see flowers would mean to bring back bad memories. So if you give a flower to one of them, they would not be happy. Okay? So when I see a flower and when a person in that condition see a flower, does it have the same meaning? No. Are we talking about the same object? Not really. Somehow, yes, but we give a different meaning to it. Okay? So when we see this object here in front of us, what appears to our eyes is colors and forms, and shapes, okay? Same thing happens while we talk. While I am talking right now, what are you listening to? Words or sounds? Sounds, really, no? What arrives in our ear? Sounds. What we do to these sounds? We assign meaning. We attribute meaning to them. Okay? If I say a word of a language that you don't speak, for example, there is this word. I made it often. I use the same example because I really like the sound of this word in Tibetan. It's shiluma. It's a nice sound, no? Oh, look, what a beautiful shiluma. It's a nice sound. Okay, but what comes to our mind when I say shiluma? If you don't know the meaning, just a sound. Okay, Shiluma means cockroach. Okay, in Tibetan. And now if I say Shiluma again, it's the same or it has changed? Okay, if I say what a beautiful Shiluma, okay, already a different meaning, a different emotion coming. So what happens is that when we talk, really what we listen is not to any word or meaning. What arrives in our ears are sounds to which we are going to assign value, meaning. Okay? This meaning that we give to things when we listen, when we see, when we touch, when we smell, when we taste, is called in Tibetan Tönchi. Tönchi means general meaning, which I prefer to translate as mental image. We have a mental image. The mental image is based on what? All our past put together. Our mental images are based on all the times I saw flowers, all the times someone showed me what a flower is, of all the experiences I had related to it. So when I see it, I have all my background. And I see the object. I have a sort of an inner database. And I'm going to look, okay, what does that look like? Okay, these are flowers. Okay, flowers. Is this clear for us? Okay. Now we have a problem, which is the flowers, in this instance, this object, are impermanent. They are constantly transforming. But the mental images are permanent. Mental images are not constantly transforming. Okay? Somebody have a piece of paper. Yeah. This is I think, okay, here. This is something, it's an example I did once, and I never change example because I think it's the best one that I've ever found up to now, okay? Take, for instance, this object. What is this? A paper tissue, okay? Look well at it. We can see it well, right? Okay, do we have a mental image of it? If we close our eyes, can we imagine it? Yes, no? Okay? The more I go into details explaining you, okay, it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 8. It has 16 little squares. Okay? It's soft and nice. It's white. I can go on describing it. The more I will describe it, the more strong our mental images becomes. Right? Okay, now, we can remember it, right? We can imagine it. Now, without mind of philosophy and trying to analyze things, just spontaneously. Is it the same tissue? Yes. Now, it's the same tissue. Yes, now we can go on the whole night. Huh? And we can go on and on. It's the same tissue. Yes. Okay. Then now, we go like this. And then I ask you, is it the same tissue? And I ask you now, is it the same tissue? Spontaneously, what would you say? No. Okay, if I give you your car, my car to you and you bring it back to me, like this, it's the same car. Or the other way around, if you give me your car and I bring it back to you like this, it's the same car. No, right? Okay, why is not the same tissue? Because, do we still have the mental image of the first tissue that I showed to you? Yes. Does that mental image fit in this object? That's why it's a different tissue. When the change is so big that the mental image cannot fit anymore into it, we say it's changed. Actually, every time I show the tissue, was there any small change in it? Yes, for sure. But what happened? We couldn't perceive it. Why? Because the mental image we had was still fitting perfectly in the object. Okay? Now we have a new mental image of the new tissue. But the other mental image, is it still there or not? Yes. And has it changed? Not really, it's there. So the problem is, mental images are permanent. Objects are impermanent. And we do not understand that what we see is an object, but we relate to the object through a mental image. We don't understand that. For example, when I think I'm going to see you tomorrow, Really, who I have the expectation to meet in my mind? The mental image I have. When I say, oh, I'm going to go to the park, I'm going to go to your house. When I say, oh, tonight I'm going back home to my nice bed to sleep. What is our object of perception when we think about the bed where we're going to sleep tonight? Is the object of perception, is the bed an object or is the mental image we have of the bed? The mental image we have, right? When we get there tonight, if the bed is not as we expected, okay, who's to blame? Oh, I had a wrong mental image, or the bed has something wrong? The bed has something wrong. If I'm going to meet you in 10 days, or tomorrow, or after 6 months, and I say, oh, that friend of mine, I'm going to meet him, how nice, and so on, I have such a good memory, and suddenly I see you, and you are not the same as I expected, who's to blame? My mental image was wrong, or you have changed, you are not the same, wow, come, you are to blame. Okay? So, we have the arrogance to expect that reality should be as we want it to be. I'm talking from still a quite gross level. We're not going deep into deep level of what reality is or not. Very, very simple things. Things change and we do not see them changing. We relate to reality through mental images. We are totally unable to perceive anything independently of a mental image. Can we perceive anything independently of ourselves? No. That's why, in order for me to understand something really well, I must also understand myself, not only the object. This is a mistake that very often is done. If we make research about an object of research, but we do not make research about the researcher, we are faulty. Okay? But we got there slowly. Finish one point at a time. So first thing, things are impermanent. Oh, good. We can relax. We don't need to live in the expectation that things should be the same. Why things change? Because they interact. Wherever there is interaction, there is change. The stronger is the interaction, the stronger will be the change. I remember one time, this came to my mind very clear. I was seeing a documentary about the digital age. And then in this thing they showed actually something quite interesting that Bill Gates did. Bill Gates, he bought an old mine of copper or whatever, salt mine, I don't remember what type of mine, in the United States. Big mine. And then inside he's putting everything printed because he says sooner or later digital things will all fail. And we cannot keep the memory of humanity in digital things because one day this would not work anymore. So he's printing all the newspapers, all the books, I don't know what exactly, but a lot of stuff. He's printing, and putting inside this big place, so that maybe after a few thousand years, whatever, there will be history. But what I wanted to say is that he chose this place because it has a special temperature. That because having a lower temperature and having the qualities of the air are specific in a way, there are not so many bacteria interfering together with the paper. The paper that has less interaction, and because having less interaction, we'll have less change and will last longer. Why we put food in the fridge? Because if the food is in the fridge, it has less interaction, so it will have less change. You have other changes that are not so good, but this is another thing. Because they have a different type of interaction. What I want to say is why things change? Because they interact. Okay? We as human beings, how much do we interact? A lot, no? We interact through the body, the mind, the memories, the people we meet. When I meet one person, it's not only the person that I'm meeting. It is interacting also with my past memories and what happened before and my expectations of the future and my body and the food I eat, the air I breathe. I am interacting with so much. So, how can I expect to meet a person and the person not to be different from the one I met before? We are always changing. Every time. So, to take away this heaviness that we take with us, that things should be as we expect, it makes really life much easier. How much suffering we have because things are not the same as we expect them to be. From all the attachments we have, and we really have many attachments, I believe that one of the strongest attachments that we have is the attachment towards reality as we want it to be. But we are starting from very simple levels. I'm not talking about, the reality of whatever. No, I'm talking about daily life. I go home and dinner is not ready. How possible? I expected it to be ready. It should be ready. I don't know anything. I'm just finding whatever examples, okay? But if we look, most of the times when things are not as we expected, we are not suffering because of what they are. We are suffering because of what they are not. Is this clear for us? True or not true? True, no? So, first thing, if we simply accept, okay, things change. So, how can I relate to reality? Accepting impermanence. Taking into consideration that things are changing. I need to understand that I relate through a mental image that is permanent. So what I need to constantly update my mental image. I see you today, nice. I'm going to see you tomorrow, okay, let's update. 1 minute. Okay, and first of all, do not have the expectation that things should be as I want them to be. As I think that they should be. For one other reason also, the more we are attached to reality, the way we think it should be, the more we are closed to new things. The more we are unable to learn and to experience new things. Okay? Is this clear for us? So impermanence is something very, very precious. It's actually, for me, impermanence is beautiful. Because it's because of impermanence that we can make things different. It's because that everything is changing, and why things change? Because they interact. Which means if I do a right interaction, I can also be part of this impermanence and so this interdependence and make the change in a way how I want. But the changes come in small parts. Okay, so one first aspect of reality. Everything that I see, I touch, I smell, I taste, or I listen, are impermanent. And they're constantly transforming. But I am unable to perceive any one of them independently of the mental images that I attribute to it. Okay, we got this? Okay. Now, in order for me to see anything, there must be one thing that we call contact. Okay? Contact means the union of. Before we attribute a name, there is the union of the object, of sense power, and of sense consciousness. For example, there is form, shape and color. There is the eyesight, and then there is the eye consciousness. When these three get together, I can perceive reality. I can perceive form. The same thing is for sound. There is the vibration in the air. There is my ear, sense power, physical. Then there is my ear consciousness. Okay? Now, we look at the flowers. The object of perception. We all can see the flowers, right? The object that we perceive, is it the same or is it different for each one of us here? Why it's different? We are looking from different perspectives. So the shape and color that is appearing to our eyes, is it the same for every one of us? No. The distance is different. The side from which we're looking is different. So we already see that the object that we see is not exactly the same. It's similar, but it's not exactly the same. Now, our eye sense power, is it the same or is it different? If I take out my glasses, I cannot even recognize my best friend. Okay? At least from the eyes. Maybe listening, yes, but... Okay? So our eye sense power, is it the same every one of us or we have different one? Similar, as we are whole human beings, but different. Our eye consciousness, it is the same or different? It's different. So what we are looking, are we looking at the same thing or is it different? It's different. Is this clear? That whenever we have conventions, okay? So, okay, is it the same flower? Conventionally speaking, without analyzing, is it the same flowers that we're looking at? Sure. But if we start analyzing and going into details, is it the same flowers that each one of us is perceiving? No. Each one of us perceive in a different way. Then, to make it even worse, or better, the mental image that we attribute, the name that we give, the value that we attribute when we see this object here that we call flowers, is it the same for all of us or is it different? It's completely different. Okay? We have different memories, different emotions that come, different meaning that we attribute. So what happens to that? For example, I take this object here. Okay? We call it a mala. It's what we use in Buddhism to make our prayers and mantras. Okay? We can see. Each one of us, we have a different way of perceiving it. One person can say it is a mala for prayer. Another person maybe, sometimes in the monasteries have a very rigid discipline. And when the kids are a little bit smaller and they're not following it exactly and so on, sometimes they may get hit. And sometimes they use the mala. So if you were used to be bitten with a mala, and then suddenly you see that mala, okay? You have the same mental image as the one that is praying with it? No. Different memories. Okay? Different way of seeing it. And even what I just said right now, to make an example. Okay. I make the example that some teachers, sometimes they would hit their students. Okay? How do we see that? Good or bad? Bad? Good? It depends. Okay? Each one of us, we will see it differently. According to what? Our culture, our own experiences, our expectations, our ideals, and so much more. I'm not going to enter now with what I think about it, okay? If it's good or if it's bad. I mean, this is ethical discussion. This is something else. The point is that the way how I see it, it depends on what? On my own experience. It depends on context. It depends on so much. So what I want to say is that the reality that we perceive, each one of us, every moment, when we are awake or when we are sleeping, it's not solid. It's not external. This doesn't mean at all that reality is only inside our mind. Does external reality exist or not? Yes. Yes, it does. Sure. No, I can touch you. I can throw water in you. You're going to feel it. We can see each other. We can touch the same things. External reality does exist. There is no doubt about it. Okay? We don't need to go into the nihilistic view that nothing exists and everything is just in the mind. Okay, there is this old Chinese saying, which is saying is quite nice, but I don't share so much the meaning. I don't know if I am a human being dreaming I am a butterfly, or I'm a butterfly dreaming I am a human being, or There are many ways how we can think, and there are many philosophical schools that went to this direction of saying, okay, nothing exists, always an illusion. Reality, external reality does exist. This is for me very, very clear. But does it exist as it appears to us or not? First of all, how does it appear to us? Of what we have just said right now, the reality in which we live, is this subjective or objective? is subjective, right? We see things, the same thing, the same word, the same sound, the same object is not the same. Even the smell, good smell or bad smell. Is this the same smell is good for everyone? And in all the moments we will feel the same reaction according to smell? No. Even though from all our senses, the one that has the most direct connection with our brain is the smell. It's very direct. And it was, I remember, because one time I saw a documentary talking about smells. It was very nice. They were talking that they were trying to make a weapon, which was a smell bomb. The idea was to make one smell that was so bad that you put in a place and people will faint or go away. They cannot stay there. Because when you have a very, very bad smell, we're not able to keep with it. The idea was, instead of putting a gas that people get hurt, you put a bad smell. But then they got a big problem. It's because they could not find out one smell that was bad for everyone. Because actually, how does a smell work for us? Well, the first time we have a smell, it comes together with a sensation of pleasure, suffering, or neutral sensation. If I have a smell and it comes with a sensation of pleasure, which category I put that smell? Good smell. If when I have that smell, I have a sensation of suffering, where I put that smell? Bad smell. Okay? And in different cultures, having different lifestyles, the same smell comes with different sensations. So people, for some smell, for ones would be bad, for other ones would be good. Okay, so they couldn't make it, basically. Finally, they put many bad smells. They collected which were the worst smells for every culture, and they tried to make one smell mixing all together. But the point is that even smell, when I smell something, for us, is it a bad smell by its own self, or is it because I have a negative memory from when I felt the first smell? How do we see it normally? It's a bad smell by itself, no? If someone comes to me and say, come on, it's not a bad smell, it's just because you had a bad experience in the past. What are we going to say? Do whatever you want to do with your philosophy, but it is a bad smell. Okay? So what happened is that actually reality is subjective. But how does it appear to us? As being subjective or as being objective? Objective. Do we believe in it as being objective? Not philosophically, practically. Yes, it's solid as rock. Not even rock is solid, but still. It's like we have this idea that things are just as they appear. But if we really analyze, if we start to observe, are things like that? So, in one way, making it very simple, simplifying it a lot, the correct view of reality is to perceive not conceptually, because the whole point is to understand. There's nothing so special to understand things. What we are talking right now here is not so difficult to understand, right? But because we have understood that phenomena are impermanent and we relate to it through a mental image that is permanent, is that enough for us not to see any more things as permanent? No. Understanding is just the first step. Once we understand, we need to get familiarized with that up to a certain level that it becomes deep inside ourselves, that concept. That we can experience even without words. It's like, there is a saying that I like, which is, learn, and after forget. It's like when we need to learn to play a musical instrument, which I don't know how to play. I know how to play the bell that we do in Buddhist ceremonies, okay? But what happened is that, let's say I want to play a violin, okay? It takes time, no? How can I learn to play a violin? Just by knowing the theory? I need to take it, learn the theory, sure. But I need to take it and play. Play. How long does it take? How many hours do I need to exercise myself until some nice sound will come out? Many. And how long does it take for me to play and play and play until a moment I feel the instrument just as an extension of my body? In the beginning, okay, this finger here to make that note, that finger there, and this and here, I'm thinking about many things. There's a certain point where I get so used to it that I forget the theory. I am the theory. I am the instrument. I don't need to think about it anymore. It's like when we are driving. Are you thinking, okay, left foot here, right foot there? No. It's just spontaneous. That's why we say learn, 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 and after forget. Which means when we experience something, we don't need anymore the theory. We don't need anymore to have the conceptual understanding of it. It becomes spontaneous. That's what we talk about, we realize something. So when we talk about reality, for example, impermanence, it's not enough just to understand that phenomena are impermanent. We need to realize it. To do that, we need to repeat again and again. We need to experience it. And once we have it, then we start to relate in a different way. But the truth is that for some reason, I don't know really what, okay? Many of you have much more understanding and knowledge about than me, our own history and culture, where it's coming from and how it is and so on. But one thing is very clear. We live in a moment of our own history where we give a way much importance to understanding, conceptual understanding, and much less importance to experience and realization. And we have this crazy idea that to understand is enough. So we understand what is reality, we understand what is right, we understand what is wrong, but we do what is wrong and we don't do what is right. We understand that everything is relative and nothing is objective. All the phenomena are subjective. If we go to see in quantum physics and here and there the importance of the observer, etc., etc., etc. And then finally, how come this is not like that? We are not realizing it. And it's so important for us to bring it into practice. When I arrived at the monastery a few years later, my teacher, Gelugpa, he told me one day, "Oh, you are studying well. That's good. But remember one thing. Just to know things is not enough. Everything you learn here, you must put them into practice." What does that mean by Buddhist philosophy? You must use the knowledge to shape your mind. If you do not shape your mind, if you do not change the way of your behavior, of your attitude, of yourself, of your character, better you go to study something else. At least it will help you to find a job. He said, oh, go to study mathematics, medicine, history, business, anything else. Because for everything you learn, you must put it into practice. That's the only reason why we learn these things in Buddhism. When I was studying the monastery, it was funny because I would meet people around and they would ask, oh, what do you study? Where do you live? Oh, I live in a monastic university. I study Buddhist philosophy. Oh, how much do you study? Oh, we study normally 6 days a week, around from 10 to 12 hours a day of study, around 11 months a year. For how long does the study program take? So around 18 years. Oh, what do you study for? What do you become? I don't study for anything. I don't study to become something, to get a job, or to have a title. I study to be a better person. I learn things to change myself. We even have titles in the monasteries, but I really never cared for them. Because why do I study? Because I want to be a better person. I need to understand things and apply them to my life. Otherwise, knowledge just for knowledge means nothing. I can have a whole theory, a whole understanding of knowledge, how to build a house. And I can have the whole knowledge of how to make a chocolate cake. If I never build houses and I never make cakes, what difference does it make? None. What makes a doctor a doctor? Finishing the university and having the knowledge of medicine, or applying the medicine to cure people? Applying the knowledge of medicine to help people to get out of their sickness and to bring them to health, to a healthy state. Okay? What makes an architect? Not knowing how to build houses, but making plans and building houses. So just the knowledge is not enough. to know things, is just the first step. So, when you talk about the nature of reality, we live in a reality also that is not just conceptual. It's very, very important, the whole other aspect, which is the most emotional aspect of our lives, the perception that we have of the world. Even now as we are talking, okay? I find myself, I cannot say it's a conflict, but sometimes I find a contradiction somehow. The more I go on with my life, the more my life is dedicated to talking. Actually, I said also before in the lecture before, I really don't like talking much. In the sense, in my personal life, the people that know me in my daily life, I really don't like talking. I only like to talk if there is something that has some sense to talk about. Otherwise, I think there's nothing more intimate than being silenced, to being silenced with a person. But what is somehow contradictory, but not really, but strange for me, is the more I go on, the more I see how words mean nothing. It's much more important the intention that I put, that we put, the emotion that I bring, the example that I am. All of this together can say much more than words. Much more. If we look in our daily life, the conflicts that come, they come because we lack knowledge or because we lack emotional stability? Emotional stability, right? But in our whole process of education, since our childhood, what were we taught? Knowledge. Learn, learn, learn. Understand one thing, know how to make mathematics, need to know the history of things, we need to know knowledge, information, 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 information. If you are emotionally stable or not, who cares? The important thing is to have good grades because you have a lot of information in your head. Look, I am a person that I love studying and I love information. But the more I see, the more my life goes by, the more I see how useless it is very often. But how much energy do we invest in our life to learn how to be emotionally stable? This is a question each one need to answer for yourselves. But very often not much, right? Even from this point of view of reality, we live in a world that the reality is not just knowledge. We're not all computers. We are made of feelings and emotions, desires, aversions. And I believe it's much more important in our education to learn, because it's possible to learn, how to deal with our emotions, how to develop the good ones and abandon the bad ones, than knowing how to do a job very well or whatever. Okay, now I just do something, it's not really about what I wanted to say, but in between. The education system that we live is basically an education system that is there for the whole economy to function. Why we need obligatory schools? Because we need everyone to learn the same things in the same way in order to function in the same way for the market and for the industry and so on. So when I need to hire someone, I know exactly what they will know and how they will function. Okay. This is just one example also how to see reality differently. For example, when you ask, is it good or bad that every child must go to school? What would we say normally? It's good. You go to a country where children don't need to go to school. What a terrible country. You see children staying the whole day with their families that are farmers and working in the field with their parents. Poor children, why they don't go to school? Would we say that or not? But if we'll start to analyze, is it necessarily like that? Nowadays in Tibet, what is happening? The kids need to go to school because they're obliged to by the government. So they don't stay with the parents anymore working in the land. When they get 18, whatever, they don't want to work in the land anymore. They don't find work in the cities because the education they have is not as good as the one the other ones get in the cities. And what happened finally? The parents are there very old trying to do the job. The kids go back home, they don't know how to do the farming job. One tradition is lost and people, they don't have their livelihood anymore. So what would be better for the kid? To learn how to know the land, when is the right period to plant, how to use the instruments, to learn that way of life, or not? It's just an example. Okay? So many things can be seen from different perspectives. But the problem is where? That we grasp reality in the way how we want it to be. And here come another thing, which is also important for us to understand. Okay? Which is according to Buddhist philosophy, we have two terms that I like very much, which is Kundak and Henki. Okay? Kundak means constructed views, and Henki means spontaneous views. Okay? So, in our mind, we have some constructed aspects of our mind and some spontaneous aspects of our mind. Constructed aspects of our minds are ways how we see things, how we perceive things, but that do not depend on something that is natural on us. They depend on the culture where we grow up, the education we receive, and so on. Let's make one very simple example. It's a very simple example, nothing too special. Take, for instance, color. Okay? Let's say we have a new kid, a boy, and we go to make the room for the boy. Which color we choose? Blue or pink? Blue, right? If we make a pink room for a boy, some people may say, oh, what will happen to him? That's not very good. So what happened is that, so basically, what's the color for boys? Blue. What's the color for girls? Pink, right? Why? Because that's how it is, come on. How can you see a boy with pink? That's terrible. It's natural that it's like this. Have you ever questioned ourselves why the boy needs blue and why the girls it's pink? Okay, I tell you why. Everything started in 1918. 1918, we are in the beginning of the age of industrial revolution. In the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, there was a point where they started to be able to produce cloth with colored, cheap. Until that time, what was the color of the clothes of kids? White, gray, cream. That's what the three possibilities basically. And some of them would get a little bit more black after some time. Okay? But this was the possibility. There was no color for boys or color for girls. Why? Because it was too expensive to have colored clothes. Suddenly, with the Industrial Revolution, they developed ways how to produce cloth that was accessible for people to buy with different colors. But they need to start to teach people that they need colors, because they're not used to needing colors. Nobody needs colors, but still. So what happened is that not colors, I think we mean clothed colors. No? So they made the marketing people of the time, in 1918, they invented that pink was for boys and blue was for girls. Because they say pink is a strong color and blue is a soft color. So pink for boys, blue for girls. And from 1918 to 1920, all the boys with pink, all the girls with blue. Then they got a problem. People were not buying anymore. They already had the pink clothes for the boys and the blue clothes for the girls. They were not used to buy things every 6 months after having inventing this strange thing which we call fashion. Okay? Because people were not used to buy clothes so often, right? Why do we buy clothes so often now? Because we need to keep the market running. And someone taught us that we need to do that. Okay? But anyhow, this is another subject. The point is that 1920, they needed to make the market to run. So they said, what do? We invert things. So in 1920, they made a strong marketing campaign in which they said, no, boys must wear blue and girls must wear pink. And from 1920 up to today, we follow. Boy is blue, girl is pink. Is this a spontaneous view or is it a constructed view? Constructed view. But when we choose the blue for the boy, do we see it as a constructed view? We say, oh, because of the marketing people of 1920, I think they were right, so because of that, I see that it's conventionally normal to do like this, so I'm also going to follow the convention, so I choose the blue. Or we simply think blue is a good color for boy. We take it for granted. In the same way, there are millions of ideas, millions of things that we simply take for granted. But they were all things that comes from the culture that we grow up, the information we receive. Another example. The worldview that most of us have here related to reality. Not only most of us here, but culturally in the modern times. The way how we see reality normally, is it coherent with the modern research developments of science or not? The science that is in the view of the world that is taught in the schools nowadays and that we grow up with and we make our choices within is a mechanical way where reality is mechanical, where we don't take into consideration the observer. We have the Newton view up to now. How old is Newton? I have no idea how long. 1600. So would it mean we are 400 years stuck? It's true. Our view of the world, if we look in the history of humanity, humanity have always changed paradigm, changed the way of seeing reality as we move along our history. Before we believed, we in the West, one part of the world believed that the world was flat. Some part of the world not even questioned how the world was. It was not it didn't matter much for them how the world was. And like this we go on. Then slowly we change this view. If you ask someone now, is the world flat or round? Anybody's going to say it's flat? How come? Why the world is not flat? Okay, because some people said, we saw pictures, we have the idea that we can travel. I have never done the complete turnaround, but still, we believe in this way. But for example, the view of the world, the science have developed in a way, have gone much beyond Newton. But the common view is still stuck there. Okay? This is to see that the way how we see the world, the constructed view that we have about reality is not just about my local understanding of the moment. It comes with the education I receive, with the information I have around me, all of this. It's much deeper. It's like pink and blue. And we live in a mechanical way of coming from, let's say, Newton, to make things more simple, which actually is before that. But if we really go to see science and all the developments that came in physics, the world view, the view of reality, it's completely different. We come from a view nowadays, if we go to look scientifically, I'm the worst person to talk about it, but still, from the little I have seen, we're talking about a view where the observer is in the center, where nothing exists objectively, everything is subjectively. It depends about how we see. It's very, very similar to Buddhist perspective. But do we see it in that way? No, because we have not yet that constructed view. So it's important for us to understand that the way how we relate to reality, how we see reality, it influences, not influences, it determines our choices. It determines the way how we experience everyday life, the way how we see reality. This is something quite shocking, actually, for me at least, that in the moment that we understand, really not just an idea, when we feel, when we can touch, and we can deeply understand that the way how I see reality changes the way how I experience life and reality, is shocking. Because we have the idea that we can interpret, we can have a different interpretation of reality. Oh, you have your interpretation of reality, I have my interpretation of reality. But then there is reality. No. How can there be a reality that is independent of the observer? Who can perceive it? Who can see it? No one. So as we move along, we will see that the way how I see reality is the way how reality manifests to me. And every choice I make, every thought I have, every word I say, everything I experience is totally conditioned by it. So it's extremely important for us to question, how do I see reality? Is it coherent or not? And if we really stop a little bit to think about it, to analyze it, we will see that most of the times when we suffer is because we are experiencing reality in a way incoherent. Is this clear or not? To understand it? Okay? Coming back to the point that we said before, we suffer much more because things are not in the way how we expect them to be than from the actual experience that we have. You just make a very simple question. In our lives, what do we have more, physical suffering or mental suffering? Mental suffering, right? Sure? Okay. Mental suffering mostly is related to the past, present, or future? Past? Future? I think up to... Really? Past, present, and future. How much mental suffering we have related to present? Present means the right now. Almost nothing. We almost never suffer for the present. Oh, you said this to me. That's already past, even if it's 1 second ago. How come you cannot say this to me? If I said, I can, first of all. This cannot be like this. If it is, it can be. No? Whenever someone comes to me and say, oh, but this person cannot do this, then the question is he doing it? Yes, so it means he can do. Okay, if you tell me it would be better that he didn't do it, okay. That's a point of view. How can we interact with him so he will not repeat it again? That's another thing. Oh, this cannot be like that. If it is, it's because it can. Okay? When we ask, but why are things like this? Okay? The Christian answer, again, I'm the worst person to talk about Christianity because I really don't know much, but based on our culture, is because God wishes it. Sometimes we listen to this, no? We say, oh, wait, why is it like this? Oh, because God wants it to be like that. The Buddhist answer would be, why is like this? Because causes and conditions were created for it to be like that. Who created such causes and conditions? The interaction of all of us put together. That's why things are like this. Oh, but it's not nice like this. Oh, full of things that are not nice. They shouldn't be like this. Why? Why things shouldn't be the way how they are? I don't know really. Who am I to say how things should be? One time I imagined how it would be if everything that I wanted would just happen. It's frightening. Because how can I know what's really the best choice? It's really very difficult to make choices at this point. I think I would get completely stuck. Okay? For example, we are here right now. Okay? And how many causes and conditions were necessary for this moment to exist? How many things have happened for this moment to exist? Thousands, millions, billions? But how many things have happened that if it was not for that specific thing, this moment would not exist as it is? So many. If I start to tell you the history of this moment, we could start ages and lives, and we cannot get to the day of today. Of things that happened, if it was not because of that, we would not be here. I make a very short example, one that I really like very much. Lama Ganchen came to the West. If Lama Ganchen would not have come to the West, I would not be here today, which means you would not be here today. Maybe someone else would be here, but not me. Not in this situation, not in this condition. To tell the truth, I have no idea what would have happened, but most probably not what we are experiencing right now. There was a moment in Lama Ganchen's life where he was about to go into retreat. Spiritual retreat of meditation for 1 year. Not seeing anyone, 1 year of meditation. So he went to talk to his friend that was later my teacher. And he said to his friend Gelugpa, "Oh, I want to go into retreat for 1 year." And Gelugpa, he was a man of very few words, but when he would say something, he would be very sharp. So he listened, and then Gelugpa simply said to him, "If I was in you, I would not be able even to do 100 mantras." He said, "Why?" He said, "With all the depths that you have, how can you relax in retreat and do meditation?" Because Lama Ganchen, he would go around and he would help people. He was a sort of, we have here Robin Hood, but instead of stealing money, he would lend money from people and give to the ones more poor. So he would take money, borrow money from someone that had a little bit more and give to the one that had less, that was in need. But by the end of a few years like this, he was full of debts. And people didn't have the courage to say directly to him, so what he would say to his friend. So Gelugpa said, so many people come to complain to me that they need the money and then you need to give them back. And then he listened. Finally, he didn't go to retreat. He went to the north of India where he was invited by the king family of Sikkim. And he was there to do healing with the mother of the king. And she had eye problems. So he healed her eye sickness. And his idea was, I go there, I stay 2-3 months, I get some money of donations and so on, I go back, I pay all the debts and I go into retreat. That was his plan. But when he went there, so many people were coming to see him. Since early morning, he had a line of people waiting for him to ask for advices and healing and teachings, whatever. So instead of 2-3 months, he stayed there almost 2-3 years. And during that time, he went to Nepal, where he met one guy called Yurgo that invited him to come to Greece, which was the first country that he went in the West. And I don't want to go into too many details because it will be too long. But basically, if he had not said to Gelugpa, I'm going to retreat, and Gelugpa didn't have the courage to say to him, oh look, I would not be able to do even 100 mantras, most probably he would have gone into retreat. He would have taken another direction, and most probably he would have never met Yurgo, that was at that time in Nepal, that was from Greece, and most probably he would have ever come here, and I would not be here today. What I want to say is that every word we say, every word we listen, every thought we have, every decision we make, it's totally, it determines what will happen in our future. But at the same time, we have no idea what would happen. So, do we really know what's going to happen tomorrow? It's another aspect of reality. We have the expectation, tomorrow what I would do. Oh, tomorrow I have a course that I need to give. So I will be in this place doing this and that. The timing will be like this. And then I will do this, then I will do that, and I will go, I will meet that person, I have this and I have that. What do I have of the future right now? Just a mental image. What happened when the future is different of the expectation we had? Frustration. Why frustration? Because it doesn't fit in the expectation we created. So once again, we are living reality in an incoherent way with what reality is. Things are not as I expected. My children didn't come out the way how I wanted them to be. My parents are not the way how I wanted them to be. After growing up, I see that they are not exactly how I wanted them to be. Oh, because here there is another point also, which I forgot to say before, which makes things a little bit worse. But it's the following. When we have a mental image, we put mental image into categories. So we have general mental images and specific mental images. So for example, we all have a mental image of father, mother, son, daughter, teacher, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. Okay? So what happens when my father doesn't fit in the mental image I have of father? A problem. Or what happens when my son or daughter or friend or whatever doesn't fit in the category which I have put him? Conflict. Suffering. I found one solution for myself. What I experience is like this. Whenever I experience something, for example, a relation with a person, any kind of relation, whenever we give a name, we put that relation in a box. Okay? And then if it doesn't fit in the box, who's to blame? The person. The relation, not the box that I have put. So what I do, I try not to give name to things sometimes. Because some time ago, a person asked me, "Oh, you have been lying to me." I said, "Why?" "You didn't tell me these things." I said, "True. But I was not lying. I was omitting. Not saying some things." "Why?" "But why you didn't say?" I said, "Very simple. In the moment that I would say these things to you, at that moment, would you have the same understanding you have right now?" The person said, "No." "What would have happened in the moment I would say these things to you?" "Oh, I would have given a name. And then, in the moment I give a name, I put in a box. But the box that you put and the box that I put are different. So when my box don't fit with your box, we are talking about two different things. But we think it's the same. And then we have conflict. So before telling you, I wait that you had the openness of mind and the experience that you can understand my box. Is it clear? So, whenever we give a name to something, we put that in a box. We are not able to do differently. If we know that we are putting it into a box, sometimes we can change boxes. There are elastic boxes also. They are very useful, really. If you put things into an elastic box, it's there, but it can change shape a little bit, you know. We put into a box that it will shape according to the content inside. The more rigid is our box, the more we will suffer. Because very difficultly or almost impossible to find something that will fit perfectly into our box. So every time we have a mental image, we have it like a box. So we have the general idea of friend. What happens when a friend doesn't fit anymore in the box of friend? He's not a friend anymore. But maybe he's still my friend, but simply he doesn't fit in the box that I have of idea of friend. Okay? So the more we are rigid into the ideas, the more we experience reality through very rigid boxes, the more we are going to live in conflict and suffering. The more we understand, reality is flexible, things are always moving. And I need to relate, try to understand them, so I need to be flexible also myself. And I need to put boxes, so let's have flexible boxes. We get much more relaxed, life gets much easier. Okay, so in this sense, it's really like, how to say, there is one point which makes a difference here, is we understand things, but we need to accept them. How easy or difficult is to accept that reality is not as we expect it to be? I think it's wonderful. Really. It's like the day I understood that problems exist and will always exist. It was such a satisfaction. Because before, the suffering was trying always to solve problems and trying to make life perfect. Then one day I understood like this. I remember I was in one place in the car, then suddenly came to my mind one situation and I got very clear in my mind. Wow, problems exist and will always exist. What a wonderful thing. So I don't need to dedicate my whole life trying to solve problems. I need to put the energy somewhere else. Problems are sacred, are very important. Because first of all, if something is a problem, it means it has a solution. For me, definitions are very important also. So this is a problem. What does a problem mean? It has a solution. If it doesn't have a solution, it's not a problem, it's a fact. Simple as that. Okay? Let's take for instance, I like very much the night also, but let's say that I would not like the evening, the night. And for me, I really suffer when the sun goes down. So for me, it becomes a problem that the sun is going down. Is it a problem that the sun is going down? No, it's a fact. No, there would be one solution, I thought about it. 6 months North Pole, 6 months South Pole. Then I have a solution. Otherwise, what's the point? I cannot get pregnant. Is that a problem or is that a fact? It's a fact. Okay? Like, would it be crazy for me to suffer because I cannot get pregnant? As hard as I may try? What would people say if I am suffering because I cannot get pregnant? Or they will laugh out of me? Or they would say, if someone is nice to me, they would say, look, come on, let me try to explain to you. Things are not like that. Okay? So what happened is, there is one things are facts, another things are problems. Problem means it has solution. Okay? So, if there is a problem, where do I need to put the energy? Into the solution, not getting stuck into the problem. So stop complaining about the problem and let's look for the solution. If something is a fact, swallow it. If you don't like it. No other choice. That's how it is. I can learn how to live with it. I can find a different perspective. I can change it by changing myself. I can learn to like the sun going down to see the sunset. I can understand so many other things, but I cannot change this. I can learn to know better my nature of my body as a man and stop suffering because I cannot get pregnant. But I cannot get pregnant. Can I do something about it? Yes, change my perspective. But that's a fact. We suffer for many facts. So we have a big difficulty very often accepting reality, even the reality that we understand. Okay? And I see this as a sort of arrogance, in which we want reality to be as I expect it to be. That's one of the most stupid things anyone can ever do. I'm sorry to put it in that way. But when we really analyze and we look at it, isn't it stupid to be attached to a reality that is just because I see it like that? At least for me, it's crazy. This doesn't mean we cannot make plans. Sure, we need to make plans. One of my mottos, something I really believe, is to have high objective, low expectation, and constant effort. But there is a very important thing about having courage, about having high objectives. The high objective must always be coherent with the present resources that I have. If I put the objective to get pregnant, I can try as much as I want. The only way is dying and being reborn as a woman. Okay? So it's not that I need courage. No, it's stupidity to try it. Because I don't have the resources. So we need to understand what are the resources that we have. And with the resources that I have, what can I do? Where can I go? What can I realize? It's what we said in the very beginning. Understanding reality. And we will see that the greatest of all the resources that we have is called interdependence. Is that things change. And because of that, when I interact, things are always moving. I am changing every moment. You are changing every moment. Society is changing every moment. But we are interacting. So if we are less attached to the way how we see reality, and we are more attached to the interaction that is constantly happening, then we can make change. For example, can I change a person? Have anyone here ever tried to change a person? Have anyone ever succeeded into it? Okay. So, if there is a person that is suffering a lot, and I see I have already gone through that, I see there is no need for that suffering, and so on, what can I actually do? Another thing here, before that, it's also how often we see people suffering because the other person is not as they expect the other person should be. How come you don't understand this? Why you are not like that? I expected you to be. Because I am myself, that's all. I am the result of all the causes and conditions that I made in the past and I interacted in the past and present. That's what I am. Sorry if I am not what you expected to be. But that's what I am. But how can I help you to change? What is the only tool I have in my hands? It doesn't matter if I am a normal human being or if I am a Buddha from the Buddhist perspective, a fully realized human being. What is the only tool I have in my hand to change you or anyone else? Interacting with you. That's the only thing I have. So if I want to make a change in a person, in society, in the environment, in anything, the only tool I have is to interact in a positive way. And by interaction, I make change. That's how we can make change. That's how we can change our life and things. But we need to accept the reality that that's what I can do. I cannot change anyone. I can simply interact with others. And here comes another thing, just before I conclude. How much freedom we really have? How much free will we really have? One time I met one man. He was a very wise old man, an astrologer. And he said to me, the freedom that we have is the freedom that a goat has when he's attached to a fence. 180 degrees. Depending on each person, have different lengths of ropes. I think our freedom is even smaller. Our free will, our true freedom is even smaller. It's a very few degrees. Not even 180. Because, am I free from my past? No. Am I free from my body? Am I free to make choices and to have understandings? For example, if I have a very unbalanced body from the chemical aspect and so on, is my mind influenced by it? Sure. Just eat a lot, you'll see what happens. The body is directly connected to the mind. We know that. Okay, where is the mind in the body? In the whole body. The mind is connected to the whole body. The conceptual understanding is in the brain, but that's just a very small part of our mind. Okay, this is another subject, okay? But this is a very important subject. That, for example, why when we say the mind, where do we point our finger normally? The head. Okay? But the mind is not just conceptual understanding. The fact that the mind is in the head, that's a constructed view that we have. That we give so much importance to the brain. Where our mind, our emotions are directly connected to our kidneys, to our liver, to our digestive system, to our heart, to our lungs, to our skin, to everything in our body. I believe like this. Okay? Anyhow, the old Buddhist texts used to say, mind and body are always connected. To see that is simply when you get sad, tear comes out of your eyes. If there was no connection between mind and body, why would you have tears coming out of your eyes when you get sad? Okay? But the point is, am I, in this very right moment, the way how I perceive the world, the experience that I have of reality, am I influenced by this body or not? Yes. Am I influenced by the environment I am or not? Yes. Am I influenced by all the choices I made in the past, and the experiences I had, and the education I received, and the actions I did? Am I influenced by my past or not? Yes. Very much. So where is my freedom? My freedom is in the present moment. I can choose between a range of words which one to say. Between a range of choices which one to take. I cannot choose anything, because it's like, for example, there is an example which is not the best one, but maybe it can help us to understand. Can I buy anything I want? Yes, as long as I have the money and someone is selling it. If there is someone selling it, but I don't have the money, can I buy it? No. And if I have a lot of money, but no one is selling what I want, can I buy it? No. Okay? So I am conditioned to the causes of the past and to the conditions of the present. Okay? So where is my choice? Where is my free will? In the small choices I have. It's like half degree. But if I make half degree to the left and I go straight, after long term, I go to a complete different direction. So today, I am extremely influenced by small choices I made 10, 15, 20 years ago. Are we influenced today by experiences we had when we were a kid? By words we listened from our parents or from a friend or something? Yes. So we can see small things like half degree, 1 degree, or even less. In the long term, it makes a big difference. That's where our freedom lies. The only freedom we have is to interact differently with ourselves and others. That's where our freedom lies. But the greatest thing of our freedom, where our true freedom is the freedom to choose how to relate to the world, how to see reality, how to experience reality. This depends on us, on no one else. And in the moment I choose gradually, because it's not from one instant to the other, and I learn and I choose to experience reality in a more coherent way, I will simply have a better life. And that's what we all want, no? Okay. So, we could go on and on about this subject. But I think I would like to open for questions. And then after I do a small conclusion. Okay? Please.
I have a question. It's hard enough to first understand and then to make the knowledge in deeper terms about impermanence of the reality. But what I find very difficult is to include in the impermanence myself.
Okay.
This myself, to me, is a very solid presence. It's something, there is the reality and here, reality may be impermanent, but I am solid. Huh?
Mm-hmm.
This is something that I really would like for you to have.
Okay. That's a very important point. Okay, the question that Paula did was that it's easier to understand the impermanence of things around us, but it's more difficult to understand our own impermanence. We can understand that the world around us we can perceive it in different ways and it's subjective and so on, but I am solid. No? Me that perceive, I am here, I am solid. So how to see that? Here we come with a question that I put a question in the beginning, but I didn't talk about it. It's a very important question that we need to do. What am I? Okay. First thing, am I an entity that exists only in this body, or I can transcend this body? It's a question. No? Maybe we want to trust, maybe we believe a way, maybe we believe another way, but it's extremely important to make the question to ourselves. Okay. So, in the moment that I am, okay, I can transcend or I can be just in this body. In the two cases, what is in common of when I was a kid and now? 10 years ago and now. For example, let's say, I don't know, when we met here? 2004? Okay, I remember a year, that's a special. Normally I have a very bad memory with numbers. 2004, okay. Many years have passed. 11 years ago. So, the person we met 10 years, the person I was 10 years ago, is the same person of today or not? It was me that talked to him in the Congress in Verbania. Or not? Yes, no? Yes, when I have memories that I was a small kid. I had this last days was very nice. I was talking to my mother and she was taking out some memories when I was a small kid. You know? And was it me or not? Yes, it was me. But am I the same or something have changed? Many things have changed, but it still is me. So what am I? The philosophical definition that is given of the self is we say, in Tibetan, which means the mere imputation of I based on the 5 aggregates. Okay, what are the 5 aggregates? Body and mind. We have the aggregate of form, that is body. Then we have 4 different aspects of our mind, which are called the other 4 aggregates, which means the aggregate of composition of factors, which is basically somehow, let's make it simple, our personality. It's 49 mental factors. We can go in details into it, but not the moment right now. Then we have the aggregate of sensation, the aggregate of discrimination, good, bad, house, car, whatever, discrimination. Then discernment, the aggregate of discernment. Then we have the aggregate of consciousness. Okay? The continuity of our mind. So we have these 4 aggregates, which is the mind, and then we have the body. Gross, subtle, our body. Okay? These 2 together, above these 2 together, which are impermanent, there is a mental image, there is an imputation of a name in which we say I. There is an identity that is generated on the basis of body and mind. Okay? This identity is what unites the I of today and the I of yesterday. Because the body has changed, the mind has changed, but there is something that puts these things together into one. It's similar when we look at the flowers again. Is it the same flowers of the beginning of this lecture tonight, or is it different flowers? It's the same flowers. Have they changed? Yes, but is it the same flowers or not? Has anyone come here and changed the flowers? No, it's the same flowers. Why I can say it's the same flowers? Because I have still the same mental image, an identity that I'm giving to it that puts all the moments together, even though there are changes. Even though in our lives we have big changes, it is still ourselves. Why? Because we have a mental image in which all these moments fit, which is called the I, the identity. And it's the same problem with the rest. The identity that we have, the mental image, And here we could go even a little bit more, but okay. The mental image that we have of ourselves, it's permanent. But we are impermanent. But in the same way that when I look to the flowers, I have a confusion. That I think that the mental image is the flowers. I cannot distinguish between the object and the mental image that I have. The same thing we do with ourselves. We have a mental image of us. What happened after many years and suddenly I am not what I expected that I should have become? I do not fit anymore. This body and mind and society, what I am, don't fit anymore in the mental image that I have of myself. Oh, crisis. What I have done, I have wasted my life. Or I am not as good as I was supposed to be. I can have an identity crisis. Why? Because I simply see that I do not fit anymore. The mental image I have doesn't fit anymore with the body and mind, with the reality that I experience. So, the reason why we see ourselves so solid is the same reason why we see the flower as permanent. It's because we do not understand that even myself, I exist on the mere imputation of the name, on the mental image that I attribute. That is what puts all the moments together. Okay. I hope it's clear. It's a long subject, but I hope it's clear. Please.
Yes, please. Can you say something about the objective reality, or let's say one goal in all this, at the end is this, how you say, the non-duality.
Mm-hmm.
Is this reality
Okay.
we can live or we can perceive?
Okay. Here there is one thing which is, sometimes it may look like a gaming of words, okay? Playing with words. For example, relative reality and ultimate reality. Okay, in Tibetan we call Kunzob Dempa and Tundam Dempa. Okay, what is the ultimate reality? That relative reality is relative. Okay. What is the ultimate reality? What is the objective reality? That subjective reality is subjective. That's the objective reality. I don't know if it's clear. I repeat again. What is the only objective truth we have? That truth is subjective. That subjective reality is subjective. Okay? So when we talk in Buddhism, we use one term. Maybe some of you have already heard about it. Today I didn't use this term, trying not to create confusion, but we call it shunyata, emptiness. Maybe some of you have already heard about emptiness. And when we talk about emptiness, it looks like nothing exists and nothing is there and everything is an illusion. No. What is emptiness? I'm simplifying it, okay? Maybe philosophically it's not precise what I'm about to say, but trying to make it simple. Emptiness is that all phenomena are empty of having an objective reality. All subjective phenomena are empty of having an objective reality, which means they are actually subjective. So when I look to the flowers are empty of being objectively a flower. They are a flower because I see them a flower. For me, they appear as a flower. For the little ant going there, they are not a flower. It's something else. Okay? So when we talk about actually relative and absolute, they are the same. The same nature. There is no, when we talk about non-duality, it's because there is no such a thing as in the absolute reality everything is the same and beautiful. And then in the relative we have differences. When we talk about absolute, ultimate, objective, it's different words to say the same. We are talking about interdependence. Everything is interdependence. That's something objective. Everything lacks an objective reality. That's why if we go into this debating and dialectics and so on, there are terms, for example, when we use that we say, nothing exists ultimately but ultimate reality exists. Nothing exists in an objective way, but objective reality exists. What is the objective reality? That all subjective reality is subjective. Okay? So it's important for us, like here we open a door to a whole subject. It's quite long because we go into very specific terms and so on. And it's the reason why, okay, I try to make it simple. Why we talk about shunyata? Why we talk about nothingness? Why we talk about emptiness? Because of a very simple aspect of our mind. We are totally unable, this is in the core essence of Buddha's teachings and is in the core essence of the path to enlightenment. We are totally unable to have two directly opposite thoughts at the same time. Okay? For example, I like water and I don't like water. Can I have these two thoughts at the same time? Try. Can we think at the same time I like water and I don't like water? No. Can I think one after the other? Yes, we do that very often. But can we think at the same time? No. So we are totally unable to have two directly opposite modes of apprehension at the same time. Okay? So, what does that mean in practice? If I want to change a state of mind, if I want to eliminate a state of mind, what do I need to do? I need to generate a directly opposite state of mind, so that one would not be there anymore. If I say, the mind that says I don't like water is not good. How do I eliminate the mind that says I don't like water? By generating the mind, I like water. That's the only way. Okay? Which is the root of our suffering, the ignorance that I was talking in the beginning. Is the mind that grasps at reality as being of inherent existence, of being of objective existence. Is the mind that I look at the flowers, they appear to me as if existing objectively out of its own self, and I believe in it. That's the ignorance that we call grasping at inherent existence. So what happened is that, what's a direct opposite mind to this one? The flower lacks inherent existence, lacks objective existence. That's why we talk about emptiness. Emptiness of what? Emptiness of objective existence. Emptiness of, we call it inherent existence. Okay? Why we need to generate that? Otherwise it would be enough to say the flower is interdependent. But it's not a direct opposite mode of apprehension of the mind that grasps at inherent existence. So in order to eliminate that mind, I need to generate a direct opposite mind, which we call the mind that realizes the lack of inherent existence. Okay? It's something a little bit complicated, but the important thing for us to understand is that reality is non-dual. Relative and absolute is the same thing. It's not two separate worlds. It's not two separate realities. This is also one important aspect. Okay.
Many people here are.
Okay.
How can we ever understand each other?
Actually, it's quite simple. The question was, how can we ever understand each other? Spontaneously, I would say never. Okay? In the sense, I would never be able to understand you in the same way how I understand myself. In the same way, sometimes people say, nobody understands me. And don't worry, nobody will ever understand you. In the sense that nobody will ever see me in the same way how I see myself. And I will never see you in the same way how you see yourself. It's simply impossible. Okay? But I can understand each other in the moment that I respect the interdependence in which we live. I respect the way how you are and I am, that we depend on the experiences we have. And how to say, I can understand you on the limits of what it means to understand you. I cannot understand you in the same way how you understand yourself. I can understand you trying each time more and more, having the humility of adapting the mental image. And as times pass by, I will always try to shape the mental image I have of you. So each time more and more I understand your contradictions, I understand your joys, your sufferings, your mentality. I try to understand it slowly, slowly. But most probably after 20 years, I will be far, far, far away of understanding you in the same way how you understand yourself. No?
Because that's also changing all the time.
That's also changing all the time. But the point is that the only way how I can do to understand another person, from my point of view, what I try to do normally, is I always try to, first of all, for example, I have learned that people are incoherent. We are incoherent, okay? For example, one thing I learned it the hard way actually, this part. Don't listen to what people say. Listen to what people say. For one reason, the way how I grew up in the monastery, we study dialectics. So a word is a word. We are very much into it, okay? So when I say something, I mostly mean what I'm saying, really. No? And what I have learned very often, people say things, not because they want to say that thing, it's because they need to say something. And because they need to communicate an emotion, they need attention, they need whatever, and then basically they are just saying things. So I have learned, I am trying, I'm still learning, each time more and more to listen to people, not on what they say, but to listen what they don't say. To listen between the words. To listen in the expression. Like one time I was with a friend and I told him, he was telling me some things, complaining, and I said, yesterday you told me these things, which are in contradiction with what you were saying me today. In a matter of fact, it was exactly one day after the other. And I say, which one shall I listen? The friend of today or the friend of yesterday? And then he looked to me, and he was a little bit upset at that moment. He looked to me and said, oh, better the one of yesterday. I said, okay. So slowly, and another thing is that when I see you or anyone, I always try to keep in mind that we are always changing. So I have no expectation that you should be in the way how I want. But I will try always to interact, this I learned from Lama Ganchen, to interact with the other person with their qualities, trying to help to develop the qualities. One time, a journalist asked Lama Ganchen, how come you have so many friends? How come so many people like you and you have so many friends? And he told, I believe it's because I relate to the qualities of everyone around me and not their faults and defects. So normally, very often, we are like with a gun, no? Looking for the defect of a person to shoot. Instead, we look at the quality and we try to relate with that part. So there are many ways how we can know another person. Maybe, for example, the same person, when I relate to that person, I relate to an aspect of that person, so I will know the person from one perspective. You relate to the same person, you relate from another perspective. And it will be two different persons for each one of us. So my way of really knowing someone is knowing that I cannot really know that person 100%. I can try to relate and be open to understand different aspects constantly, updating the mental image I have of the person. That I think that's the best way. Okay. So here, you were saying something before.
No, I was wondering, I think maybe people here are in healthcare.
Okay.
Could you spend some words about how this all relates to health?
Okay.
And help people getting more.
Okay, how all of this relates to health. First thing, which, according to health, I think is very important, from what I have said, is basis, result, and path, or basis, path, and result. We must have clear what are the resources that we have, what is the potential that we have, where we can get, and what's the path to get there. Something that I feel sometimes that we miss the point is that we are very busy dealing with the difficulties and with the sicknesses and the symptoms and not pointing high. Sometimes I feel that we are lost. I mean in the daily life, in our society, in the medicine, in many ways. Sometimes I feel that we are lost not having a real direction. We are doing many things. Okay? So first thing is, what is the reality of medicine, of healthcare? Are we disease, sickness care, or we are health care? Okay? What is my role as a doctor? To cure disease or to bring people to a state of health? It's two complete different things. They are related for sure. But from my point of view, are two completely different things. So, according to the way how I see my reality, it will change the way how I work. If my objective is to bring the person to a state of health, first I need to understand what does that mean. For example, for me, to be really healthy, I mean in the complete sense, you must experience reality in a coherent way. Because otherwise, if we do not experience reality in a coherent way, we will end up nervous, with anger, with jealousy, with anxiety. Things are not happening the way how I expect them to be. How come that is possible? So all of this will bring all the other problems that we know so well. Anxiety accumulated in time, does it bring health problems or not? Sure. We don't need to be a doctor to know that. I know nothing about medicine, but this I know. So, having a correct view of reality, it's very important because it will bring us to have more calm, to understand things better. I believe many of the sicknesses that we have nowadays are mostly based on our mental suffering, not on physical suffering. No? I remember some data from Brazil. Now I don't remember really the numbers. I have very bad memory with numbers, but on one medicine which was against anxiety, and in few years, the amount that went up of this medicine is something shocking. You know, if we look our Western world in which we live, not the right word is not the Western world, it's the materially developed world, let's call it like this. Because it's happening in the East also very often in many places, but it's something that we taught from the West. Physically, the physical suffering is getting less and less, right? Okay, how many people here really suffer from cold or from heat? Not much. Have air condition, central heating. How many people really suffer from hunger? Not much. How many people suffer from pain? A little bit more, but not that much. We have painkillers and so on. How many people suffer from anxiety? Not being able to sleep well? Of fear? Many. Okay? So, there is one important thing. That is, I believe that in order to bring ourselves to a state of health, it depends on every action we do every day. So, anyone as a doctor, what can you do to bring that person to a state of health? You can interact with the person in the best way. That's all we can do. That's why we need patience. We need to be very patient. Otherwise, if we don't have a lot of patience, how many times, I don't know, you have said something to your patient, and he come back after 10 days and he has been doing the same thing. And we have a problem nowadays, that is that people, all of us, based on the education and the whole system, we are not anymore used to the simple concept of cause, condition, result. We expect things to be immediate. For one example is that we are not anymore used to plant. Where do fruits come from? The supermarket. It looks like a joke. But that's how we relate to things. Okay? So what happens is that we lose the concept of cause and effect. When we have a plate of food in front of us, are we aware of how long it took for that salad to grow? How much water was necessary? How much care was necessary? Not much. And I think not many of us. Me, not that much. So what happens is that we lose the concept of cause and effect. For example, we want everything to be immediate. So we lose also the concept of needing to put effort into things. So I just make one small example, that something I learned one day. I was in Tibet, in the monastery, yeah, and was almost winter, December. We were outside, and it was very cold. So I asked the boy living there, I said, how come it's so cold, no? You are not, isn't it a problem that you live here, it's so cold, not any insulation? He said, it's winter, no? Winter, it's cold. And so what? My mind is in another direction. But the really point which I want to say was another one, actually. Was that at the same time, I was talking to my teacher, and I saw the same boy, actually, coming up with 12, 15, 20 liters of water in his back. And they have no water system pipe in the monastery. They have the technology, they have the money, why they don't do? So I asked him, and I said, why not? He said, if you do not learn on the practice to put effort in the most basic things of life, how can you put effort in meditation after? If you get everything immediate, how can you put effort afterwards? So we live in a society that everything is immediate. But we know, to bring ourselves to a good state of health, is it immediate or is it gradual? It's gradual. It's daily work. It's hard work. It's the way how we eat. It's the way how we sleep. It's our lifestyle. So from what I believe, is that the freedom that we have, that you as a doctor you have, is to interact with people. But I really believe that the greatest way of bringing ourselves to a state of health is only through the lifestyle that we have, that is connected to all the choices that we make. This is what personally I believe. And another thing also, just connected to what we have said, is, for example, sometimes I listen people saying, oh, we're researching on the cause of cancer. Sincerely, I think is a bit, fun is not the right word. But I don't think anyone can find the cause of cancer. I think we can find the many causes of cancer. Because it's an epidemic that we are experiencing that is coming from the lifestyle that we have. We all know it. So, where is the solution? Lifestyle. It's in many things. So very often, we shouldn't look for the solution in one thing, because we will never find it. We can stay our whole life looking for the solution for cancer. We will never find it if we look for one thing only. Because the causes are multiple. So the solution is also multiple. So when we look at a problem, try to look from different perspectives. Another thing also is like, before finding a solution, we need to understand well the problem. This is another thing in Buddhism very well clear. But believe in the potential of each one of us. We have a much bigger potential to be healthy and happy than we imagine normally. And my personal experience is the way how we see reality, how we experience the world, it influences our emotions. And by that, it influences our body. This is quite simple. Okay. So remember that, in a way, I believe, as a doctors, you have a very noble profession. But one thing which is, in my role, is the same way. I cannot say something to people that I do not believe. I can say, but it won't work. If you give health advice to your patient that you don't follow, it won't have much effect. If we practice what we say, then it has an effect. I believe this is something that is my own personal view, but something that sometimes I feel sad when I look to the life of many doctors is the way how I see in many hospitals and so on that doctors are supposed to live. It's not a very healthy way. Okay? And the first one that needs to be healthy is who? The doctor. If I am not healthy, how can I help others to be healthy? This is what I think, at least. So, by having a healthy lifestyle, mentally, emotionally, physically, then I can bring much more benefit for others in order to go into the same direction. Okay? So I think this is all. I will make a short conclusion. I think we are more or less on time, no? Yeah. So, just to make a conclusion,